Today I've got 10 more Midjourney styles for you to try. Simply add these within your prompt separated by a comma to get results just like these. Now I've used Midjourney for this video, but you could use almost any platform to try these out. Our first style is Wartorn Media Photo, which seems a little bit morbid, but I love the way it takes our characters and puts them into these sort of warlike scenes. The high contrast and the muted colors just makes for a really good looking photo, but also the way it transforms the characters like Optimus here and Mickey Mouse. It has a very sort of almost soulless kind of look to it, and I really just enjoyed playing with this style. The way it sort of placed people in the scenes, the drama that it added, it was just a really fun style to experiment with, and it really just transformed the imagery into something a little bit more dark and just very visually appealing. And next we have Inkwash painting. So I love being able to throw in different Asian art styles here. This is like a Chinese style of painting primarily, but the way it sort of adds almost like a watercolor sort of effect around a lot of these images just creates some really nice artistic looking imagery. Primarily, it's mostly like a black and white style, very high contrast, and also just has a nice texture in the background, like it's actually something that's been scanned. And like I said, that watercolor sort of fade from around the outside of a lot of the subjects works really well. Now, I mentioned that it is primarily black and white, but sometimes you get something a little bit different like this one here. So definitely have a play with that one if you like the way this looks. But otherwise, we have Greek god-inspired physical presence. So I didn't want to go for the physique side of things, but I wanted to see what it did. And in a lot of cases, it adds beards, robes, and sometimes it does focus on the physique like it has with the last few here. But overall, it tends to lean more into a very powerful Greek style of mythology. Every character looks powerful. Mario here looks a little bit funny, but otherwise what you get, we got Optimus Prime here with a beard, robes, and you can see how it adds various elements to the character to really kind of make them like that fancy Greek god that you might imagine them as if they were to become some kind of Greek deity. So I really thought this was a fun one to play with. And the final one here with Pikachu, I love how serious he looks, almost like a philosopher. It was a lot of fun. But next we have inspired by 1920s Surrealism. Now Surrealism is like an art movement that came out after the end of World War I, and you can see it has a lot of surrealist looks to it, but I thought I'd try 1920s because that's like close to that period, but added a 1920s feel to each image along with the surrealism. So it has a really nifty impact on the way that it dates some of the elements, but also has a little of a surrealist touch. Now with this, I think you could probably try any decade to add different elements of that decade along with the surrealism, but I really liked this 1920s style when it was mixed in. I also want to quickly mention that if you're looking for some prompt formulas or things you can use these styles with, check out my free 25 prompt formula e-guide that you can download in the description below. But this style was a little bit experimental. Minimalist vector logo as a 3D render. Two conflicting styles. I found it did a pretty good job of flattening, simplifying things, and then adding a 3D feel to the vast majority of the images. Not all of them, but you can see how we get this nice simple Terminator skull here, but with a 3D look. Optimus is more of a geometric style, so you do get that sometimes, but the simplified nature of the imagery, along with that sort of slight 3D added to it, just creates some really nice, neat images that I thought were definitely worth sharing if this is the type of imagery you're looking to create. So things like this in the home, it's all very simplified, cleans things up so you can kind of get rid of some of that over detail which Midjourney sometimes will do with your images. But aged medieval style artwork was something I sort of looked at from another style I shared a few weeks ago, but I tried to really zone in on that style of artwork and the aged look to it. Now the woman's face just looks like an aged photo, but the rest of these, the way it dresses the characters, the way it puts them on like some yellow tinted parchment in most cases, and the style and the decorations around it just created some really interesting images. So this is definitely one I think could be worth playing with, and you can also again switch out medieval for any other period to see what you get. So I think this is going to be a fun style to play with if you want to see how it approaches different characters like Superman or Mario here with the shield and the sword, and even down to the futuristic car. The way it has sort of made that is a little bit different and unique. But next we have made from Celadon porcelain. So we get this really nice porcelain style statue, and everything looks like a photograph of something like an old collectible, but it does a really good job of shaping our various characters and subjects to match those. But I really love this one of Goku on the cloud, or the flying nimbus as you will, or the busts like Batman here. It has a really nice impact and style on the characters as well as the actual material. But inspired by Max-Headroom, something completely different. If you remember the Max-Headroom TV, or maybe the TV hijacking in the 80s, you can see what kind of effect it has. On the modern home, it's sort of just transformed the home a little bit, but most of the characters have that sort of like sunglasses, spiked hair look and in many cases it adds in things like VR headsets or sunglasses. But the way it also approaches the color around the subject quite often just sort of matches that Max-Headroom style. So this one was a really cool and fun visual style to play with, and I just love the way it handled most of the characters, especially when it comes to the headsets and the sunglasses. So I had a lot of fun with this one. I recommend you try it out for yourself. And again, we're going to finish off with Pikachu, and he's got some crazy sunnies, which is also a pretty fun touch. But another experiment I had was made of light, and this created some nifty effects. So we get this very sort of, everything is very lit up or translucent, everything has a glow to it, but it's not always the same type of light effect. There's always some kind of glow or light added to the images, but it just tends to create these high contrast, sort of like, almost like taking a very dimly lit character and adding a light effect over the top. So I really thought this one turned out a lot better than I expected. I didn't know what to expect. I just threw it at the machine, and this is exactly what it pumped out. So have a play with that one if you like what you see on screen. But next we have a Victorian era futurism. So taking a very old fashioned style of period, like Victorian sort of period era, but adding futurism to it. Obviously dresses the characters in a very old fashioned way, but pops them in futuristic scenes where there are futuristic elements kind of woven into that. So the way that it approaches this again is a very almost like steampunk type style that you would see, but very much nailed down to two particular styles. So obviously being Victorian and futurism. So I had a lot of fun with this one as well. So have a play with that to see what you think. It does tend to change your characters a fair bit in some of these, the way it adds suits or dates them, like Optimus Prime here with his top hat, the Autobot symbol. Superman isn't even really wearing his suit. He's just got a red cape on a suit, and Batman again looking very fancy. So you can see how this kind of works. But this was actually something I thought I'd try as well, Victorian era neon futurism. So it had that Victorian style to it as well, but added like a neon feel to the futurism. So a lot of neon lights and neon colors, the way we've got a little pink lightning coming off of Goku there. The Terminator here looks really cool. It doesn't look like Terminator, but just looks like a cool robot. Hulk, I just tried Hulk this time and got this really cool looking image. So you can see how this creates some really cool, outstanding imagery by mixing a lot of very contrasting styles. Victorian tends to be very sort of muted, sort of like almost sepia, but adding the neon, going to a different color palette, just really changes things up. So you can really apply this, or any sort of color style I'd imagine would be worth trying. You could try radioactive color palette or anything like that to see what you get as well. But I really like the effect of this, and I really love this car. This car looks really, really cool. But overall, those are the styles for this week, guys. I hope you found them interesting and useful. If you did, please consider giving the video a like. Otherwise, hope to see you again soon. Have a great day. Thanks for watching.